Good morning. I am Steve Weber, the host, the co-creator of the American Gumption Morning Show. And I am broadcasting to you here on Spirituality Gone Wild, a very rapidly growing network of spiritual teachers and leaders and people who are all about creating greater consciousness and awareness and improving the human experience. So honored to be part of that team. And today I have one of the fellow team members, Joseph LoBrutto, is going to be joining me this morning in just about 15 minutes. And Joseph has his own show on Wednesday nights. That'll be tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern time. So we'll tell you all about that as the show unwinds. So looking forward to having Joseph join in, and we'll learn all about what he is doing. So today I also want to do a little monologue on taking inspiration from Seth Godin and his blog post today, and it's called The Automated Self. And so it's really about consciousness and this subconscious. So I'm going to get into that in just a few minutes. Let me just tell you what's coming up. Now, tomorrow I will be doing a live show. At this point, I don't have a guest scheduled, so I'll figure something out. I'll do some kind of a monologue. I'm not 100% sure what I'm going to do, but that's the way we roll here at the American Gumption Morning Show. We figure it out day by day. Alrighty, and then on Friday, Joan of Angels, Joan Handgarter, Joan of Angels, and she is also a new member of the Spirituality Gone Wild host or co-creator team. And so she has been doing miracle making, and she is an artist and an author and an oracle. She has been doing this work for 20 plus years, maybe even longer. And so we'll learn about who Joan is, and that'll be on Friday's show. So with David Strickle yesterday and Joseph LoBrutto today and Joan of Angels on Friday, this has been a Spirituality Gone Wild week here on the American Gumption Morning Show. And really, it's great to get to know these people. And, they do their shows, and they do their shows in their unique, special way. And what I want to do is just sort of take you behind the scenes and introduce these people and tell you who they are, so that when you do tune in, you have a little bit of more of an idea and a perspective of what that's all about. Alrighty, now let's go ahead and jump into today's monologue. Oh boy, we have lots of comments already. Bettina's checking in. And Joseph, of course, has checked in and said hello. Cheryl Scott is saying hello. So we have people out there checking in with us. We love that. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Alrighty, so now let me change my banner. One banner here, the American Gumption. Yeah, because it's the monologue. So this morning I read Seth Godin's blog, and it's called, so my monologue is called The Automated Self, and his blog post was talking about that very topic. So I'm going to share with you that blog post, and understanding the automated self is what Seth said. So if you don't know who Seth Godin is, I've been reading his blog since 2009. I think he started his blog around 2000, maybe even in the late 1990s. He was one of the original bloggers. And if you are at all familiar with online marketing, you have to know, or you probably know who Seth is. And so Seth is he has written multiple books over the year. He came from publishing. He was part of the Prodigy team, I think, online, the original whole idea of when the internet started. But he's been in the publishing business, and then he started this blog roughly 20 years ago, and he's published every day for 20 years. I don't know how many blog posts, but I became familiar with him in 2009, and that's when I started. So for 11 years, I've been reading his blog post. And the neat thing about what Seth does is his blog posts are very short. Typically, they're very short. Sometimes they're a little bit longer, but sometimes they're just like 2 or 3 sentences long. And, they always make me think, and really it's about marketing, and it's about connecting with other people. And it's not so much a spiritual thing. It's more of a business thing, but there's a lot of spirituality underlying the topics, because it's about connection with people. He's really the guy who invented the whole idea of permission marketing. I think one of his books was even called Permission Marketing. But the idea that, he defined that in the olden days, television commercials like would barge into your room. We're sitting there, we're watching a show, and there's only 3 channels on, the 3 networks primarily. And, TV commercials would come on, they would barge in, and we'd be forced to watch them. And of course, the ad agencies and the businesses that could afford to do television advertising, they went to great lengths to make these things attractive and interesting. And so, but it was kind of like they were, pushing their idea, and you really, you were a captive audience. You didn't have choice whether to say, I don't want to watch this, or you could switch the channel to one or the other 2, but chances are the commercial was on all 3. So when the internet came along and choices exponentially increased in terms of what type of information we could consume, Seth was the guy who defined what permission marketing meant. And it was basically, because people have choices, you have to seek their permission in order to send them things. So the ultimate permission is someone giving you their email, and you now have permission to send them a message and a communication on a regular basis. And now we have, as the person who signs up, we have the option of not consuming their information, because we can either ignore their emails, or we can just delete their, we can unsubscribe from receiving the information. In the olden days, again, TV commercials, they barged in front of you, and then of course you didn't really have any choice. Now the big, the Googles and the Facebooks and the YouTubes, now they're bombarding us with commercials. They're giving us free content, to what? But these commercials keep showing up and appearing. And so you have to watch for at least 5 seconds, and then you can click to skip the rest of the commercial. Or in some cases, you don't have a choice of skipping it. You might have to watch 15 or 20 seconds of a commercial on ESPN app. If you want to watch the highlight plays, you end up with a commercial in between every one of the highlights. And so we don't have that choice. But if we want the free content, so anyway, that was his whole idea of it. That's who Seth is. Now I've kind of rambled on that whole idea. I wanted to get into his post today, and it was called Understanding the Automatic Self. And I'm just going to go ahead and read it. It says, how do you act when you're not thinking about how do you act? How do you act when you're not thinking about how you act? When no one is looking and you're just doing what you're doing. That's the automatic self. No narrative, no second guessing. Now, here's the real question he asks. Has your automatic self changed since you were a kid? Has your automatic self changed since you were a kid? If it has, and I hope it has, then that's all the proof we need that the automatic self isn't a given. It's not hardwired, and it's not permanent. In fact, it changes from practice. It's a skill. We can learn to be the automatic version of ourselves that we'd like to live with. I'm going to read that line again. We can learn to be the automatic version of ourselves that we'd like to live with. It takes habits, learning, and feedback, and the commitment to become a better version of ourselves. So really what Seth is saying is that it's the subconscious mind. He's calling it the automatic self, but it's the subconscious mind at work. And, there's a lot of statistics or the one statistic that's repeated a lot of different places is that we operate in the conscious mind about 5% of the time. And that means 95% of the time, we're kind of on autopilot. We're in our subconscious and we're just running a program. When we're driving our car, we're on autopilot in terms of driving the car. We're not thinking about doing it. Something happens. Yeah, we pay attention. But most of the time we can be thinking about all kinds of crazy things and we're just driving along. We don't even remember how we got there. And many other activities through the course of the day. Our heart beats, steadily. We keep breathing in and out. All of that has happened by the subconscious mind automating and, controlling ourselves. And so basically Seth is saying we can create new habits by learning. And if we become more aware of those subconscious actions and behaviors, then we can create new habits around those things. Now, the co-creators, my fellow co-creators and host here on Spirituality Gone Wild, that's the kind of things that we talk about all the time. How do we connect the body, the physical body, with the subconscious, with spirit? And how do your mind, body, spirit, how do you bring all of those together and make them work for a better human experience? And one of the lines I like, Joe Dispenza, I believe, is the guy who I've heard say it, but we got to become aware. We have to start thinking about what we're thinking about. We have to start thinking about what we're thinking about. I love that. Anyway, here at Spirituality Gone Wild, it's all about creating a better human experience, connecting the conscious with the subconscious, the physical with the non-physical, and rethinking some of those automatic programs that we learned maybe as a child, as far back as a child. That's where most of this automated part comes in. Bruce Lipton talks about the first 7 years of a child's life. Their brain is basically in theta, which is the hypnosis state. And so they are just consuming information. And that's where a lot of these underlying practices, habits, or automated behaviors that we have come from. And we don't have to keep them forever and ever. Some of them work very well and we want to keep them. And then some of them we want to, become aware of, and we can, with practice and with learning, we can develop new habits. So that's it. That's the understanding the automate itself, a hat tip to Seth Godin for the inspiration for this morning's blog post. And, yeah, that's all I wanted to share with you this morning. It's really the subconscious mind and the conscious mind, and learning to connect them, or start thinking about what we think about. I love that. So, and Kristen's checking in also. Look at that. Joseph's co-host is co-show host on Wednesday nights is checking in to say hello. So good morning, Kristen. Thank you for joining us. And her show is on Monday night. So shout out to Kristen. Also one of the Spirituality Gone Wild co-creator hosts. So we love our family of Spirituality Gone Wild hosts. Alrighty, let's go ahead. And I see Joseph is in the green room. Let's go ahead and welcome him to the show. Joseph, good morning. How are you?
I'm doing well this morning, Steve. How are you?
Doing good. Thank you. Welcome.
It's an honor to be on your show, and thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, you're very, very welcome. Really, it was Kristen who introduced us. And so anyway, I'm just delighted that we've talked. We've gotten to know each other a little bit the last few weeks. But this will be a great chance for me to introduce you to the American Gumption audience and to learn more about what you're doing in your show on Wednesday night. So now I would like to do two things. I have a little bio that I've prepared that I'd like to introduce and read and tell people who you are. And then there's a song that I like to play to welcome first-time guests to the show. And the thing about this, Joseph, is that it's only one time. You're only a first-time guest one time. So I hope you'll come back, but we won't ever play the song again. Does that sound okay?
Well, I may like the song. I may want to hear it again.
Well, what we'll have to do is actually create your own theme, like the Joseph LoBrutto theme song that welcomes people to the show. All righty. All right. So Joseph LoBrutto is a psychic medium and spiritual healer. Have you ever had the feeling as though someone was in the room with you, even though you knew the doors were locked and you were alone? That happens to Joseph all the time. As a child, Joseph used his allowance to buy figurines of saints. He'd take them home and line them up on his windows. Joseph was not an ordinary boy. An early memory of a spirit encounter came shortly after the death of his paternal grandmother when Joseph was 10 years old. Her spirit came to him in his bedroom. She told him she loved him and wanted to say goodbye. That encounter made Joseph realize that the parade of people who had been visiting him were spirits. it actually scared him quite a bit, and he repressed those thoughts for quite a while. So years later, Joseph's cousin passed away at a young age. That's when he finally began to take his gifts seriously. He connected his cousin's spirit with the widow. Joseph witnessed the healing it provided, and it was then that he realized that he could and he had to help others. He realized then that he could and he had to help others. I love the idea that we don't always choose what we want to do. Sometimes it feels like it chooses us. And I know that feeling, and I know that tells me that you know that feeling too. So now today, Joseph is an ordained minister, spiritual life coach, spiritual healer, and a teacher of intuitive development. Additionally, he is a certified psychic medium and a published author. He has helped many people experience miraculous healings from disease, trauma, and depression. His healing workshops provide attendees with spiritual balance for a healthy mind, body, and spirit. I love that. Healthy mind, body, and spirit. Boy, if we can get them all connecting together, then we have a pretty good life here on planet Earth. So anyway, Joseph LoBrutto, welcome to the American Gumption Morning Show.
Okay, so where's the song?
All righty, yeah, let's get into that song. Here it is.
All right. My birthday's on July 6th, and that's the opening of the 4th of July when they play the big bands at the concerts and stuff for the 4th of July. So it always reminds me of my birthday.
Excellent.
So perfect song.
Well, good. I'm glad. So interestingly, here's a coincidence, and there are no coincidences, but so your birthday is July 6th. My birthday is July 7th.
So we celebrate the 4th of July all week, don't we, on our birthdays?
Exactly. And now here's kind of a little more weirdness about the birthday thing on July. So the movie Forrest Gump came out on July 6, 1994. And of course, I worked for the Bubba Gump Shrimp Company for 15 years as their Forrest Gump impersonator. And so July 6 is an important date. July 7th, of course, is my birthday, and Tom Hanks' birthday is July 9th. So, that 3-day period, that 3-day span has Forrest Gump, Steve Weber, and Tom Hanks all.
Well, I'm going to share something that most people don't know. I know you're a Forrest Gump impersonator, or you were. I went to San Francisco, where the Bubba Gump thing is on
Pier 39.
There. And that's where I proposed to my ex-wife to get married. And Forrest Gump was sitting there, and I whispered to him, I'm going to ask her to marry me. Can you say something? And we were filming it, and he did say, this gentleman wants to marry you. Are you sure you want to marry this person? And so it was the Forrest Gump impersonator who kind of mentioned to her that I was going to propose marriage to her. So I just wanted to share that with you.
Well, that Forrest Gump impersonator was me because I worked at the Bubba Gump restaurant in San Francisco as my home store. So Monterey.
What about 2001, I believe?
Yep. I was there from 1996 to 2011, and wow. San Francisco and Monterey. If you still have that video,
I gotta see where I can dig that up. That's a long time ago.
That would have been me. So there you go.
Yeah, I was married in 2001, so I probably proposed to her in 2000. So, on there. So if you were there in 2000 in San Francisco at the Bubba Gump thing, we already met, Steve.
We see we're just learning that, so that's great. Well, I
Yeah,
figured
you
I
were
ended up.
you were a great impersonator, I have to say. You were like the real thing, and you were very funny, very witty. You made us all laugh, and so
It was a it was a magical time, and I look back and I realize, and I came to realize it towards the last few years how special it was. But those early years, I was just sort of in a an autopilot mode, and in some ways I was probably channeling Forrest Gump at that point. I was just sort of getting into the zone and doing it. So it was a wonderful time.
yeah, good. That I met a celebrity. How about that?
Well, let's talk about you, because what you're doing is something, something very special. And the intro, talked, just sort of teased it a little bit. You were this unusual child who was collecting these saints and figurines, and then you had experiences where you had visitations and you didn't quite necessarily even know what was going on. And it wasn't until your grandmother passed that she came, and then you realized it, and it kind of frightened you. And you said, I don't know if I want any parts of this whole thing. So tell us about that, first, the early experience.
Yeah, I was young in age, probably about 8 years old at the time. And I remember I'm Catholic, going to Catholic school, and my parents, I would get an allowance, and I would go to the church fairs, and I would buy these saints, Saint Joseph, Mother Mary, and Jesus, and I would put them on my windowsill and just in my bedroom. I don't know why I put them up there. Most kids would collect baseball cards and things, and here I'm buying these saints, and I still have the collection too of everything. And now I realize, when I saw the movie Sixth Sense, and the little boy in Sixth Sense had all these saints protecting him, I say, wow, okay, maybe this makes sense why I did this at a young age. Well, I used to see spirit all the time. They used to come to me, but at that time I didn't know the difference. They looked like regular people to me, and they were all jovial, funny, made me laugh. And a lot of them were my spirit guides who I contact today too in channeling. And they used to come to me too. But it's when I was around 9.5, when my grandmother passed away. And I remember attending her funeral, my father taking me up to her coffin, and she was all laid out, and my dad saying that this is our last chance to say goodbye to Grandma. She'll be in heaven. And after the funeral, we went to the cemetery. I saw her get laid down into the ground. Well, days later, as I was walking into my bedroom, there she was again, sitting on my bed this time, smiling at me, just clear as day, like I see you. Now it scared me. I realized that I was seeing ghosts for the first time. I realized that all these other beings that were visiting me were ghosts. I remember screaming and running out of the bedroom, but I can hear her voice saying, Joey, I didn't have a chance to say goodbye, and I love you. And that was the last time I heard from her. But I slept with the lights on, my head underneath the covers. I didn't want to see, feel, hear anything anymore. And eventually it all went away. I started having I don't want to call it nightmares. My dad thought I was having nightmares or imaginary people. But it all stopped, and I had a normal teenage life, I want to say, from probably age 11 all the way through high school and everything. So most people who knew me in high school, they said, I didn't know you were a medium or a psychic. Yeah, I didn't know either. I found out later on in life that it's on my mother's side. I am Sicilian and also Puerto Rican. On the Puerto Rican side of the family, it's like 8 generations back, from healers, from channels, to mediums, to psychics. My great-grandmother, Francesca, was known to be one of the best in Puerto Rico. She said, my mom said thousands of people, or maybe she said thousands, probably hundreds of people would line up just to come see her. She was a midwife, for one thing, but she used to touch people and heal them. She used to talk to the dead. She also used to tell people about their future. So pretty much what I'm doing here today is what my great-grandmother, Francesca, used to do. And maybe she's embodied within me. I don't know, but that's where my gifts come from.
I've read your book. Let me just go ahead and share the screen briefly and just show people your book. Here we go.
Over my shoulder too.
Yeah. So it's Speaking to Heaven, Our our loved ones are only a breath away. And I had a chance to read the book this past week, and I just wanted to say I enjoyed it because it's really kind of the story of how you came to this. And so some of the things we're going to talk about are contained in the book. And then also you really go to great lengths to talk about, what heaven is and from the spiritual side. So through the connection that you have, you share ideas. And I also was raised Catholic, the Christian faith, and lots of it sounds very familiar. And then lots of it is details that you didn't necessarily hear before, and yet they make sense because they're consistent, with what we were taught as children about what heaven is like, and yet there's something more to it. So anyway, I just wanted to kind of give people an idea of what the book is all about. And I recommend that you go to Joseph's website, ourjourneyoflife.com. And he's got lots of great resources there, but he has his books, and, you just click on the link and you go to Amazon and you can get the book very easily. So,
Yep.
All right. Yeah. So
I have a few others books too. I'm going to just hold up. My first book was called "Is There More to Life Than What We Know?" And this is the original book of how I got started. I have my grandmother's story in here too. And I think both books I have it in. But this is how I became a channel. And I was a channel first before I was a medium. And then as I became a channel, I wrote The Promise, the metaphysical teachings of Jesus. And this is a channeled book of Jesus's words in modern times, teaching his lessons, what he wrote what was written in the Bible in a metaphysical way. And that's my other book too. I just wanted to share. Okay.
Perfect segue. Go ahead and explain the difference between what a channel is and what a medium is, and really kind of explain both of them and then what the differences are.
Okay. Back in the early 80s, I was watching a show called Out on a Limb with Shirley MacLaine. It was a movie. And Shirley, who's the entertainer, went to England to meet a person who's a channel. A channel will channel spirit guides, angels, and they're connected to source, to God, and all that there is. I call it the I am. And when I remember I was like 22, 23 years old, I was so interested in this. And a person named Marilyn Raphael here in Palm Beach County took me under her wing to groom me. And so she taught me how to become a trance channel. We would work in a group session where I would go deeply into trance. When I go into trance, these guides will merge with me. The first came through was Patrick. Laughter raises the vibration. I become Irish in front of you. And I know Debbie Garcia from Spiritual Gone Wild has seen me channel all my guides before. Even Kristen too has seen me channel. And so I would my guides would come with different lessons, and I would be this channeling. But when I was channel, I used to bring loved ones through. As I brought my guides through, they would bring loved ones through people. So one night, when John Edwards started to come on TV back in the 90s, late 90s maybe, I was interested. I was watching him doing platform mediumship, and I said, okay, maybe I don't have to be blindfold here channeling my guides. I could take the blindfold off and do what he's doing. So I started practicing without bringing my guides in and channeling, but to bring in the loved ones and hear the loved ones. And then I started to hear them come in. So it kind of moved in from channeling to mediumship. And then I started doing mediumship from, it was probably the late 90s, but I was a closet medium. I didn't want many people to know what I was doing. I didn't come out till 2008. I started having little small groups. And all of a sudden, in 2010, I just blossomed. I left my profession of, I was a entertainment photography and video. I had a little production company. So I left that business into doing this full time in 2010. In 2013, I had an opportunity to go to Brazil to meet a man called John of God, where my healing abilities kicked in. And I was told I was to become a healer. a year later, in my workshops, people were being healed from aches and pains, and then from major diseases like cancers and different things. So I started to do small groups and healing circles and everything. And so now I'm known as a healer, channel, and medium. But the mediumship is connecting to our deceased loved ones. Channeling is listening to spirit guides, angels, and communicating information. And that's the two difference between the two.
Yeah, great. I appreciate your explaining that. Now, one of the elephants in the room with this whole thing is that people, and even I myself, because of some of the subconscious, become of the automatic behaviors or automatic reactions that I have. It's like kind of like, hey, this is this is kind of kooky. This doesn't make sense. And I've been allowing myself to grow and evolve in terms of, what's possible. And when I think back on the earliest, things that I was taught, there certainly was a God and a heaven. Okay, that part's all consistent. And there was some kind of a connection that was happening between them. But when you actually get down to actually connecting and talking to them, that's when somehow the world goes, wait a minute, this isn't allowed. So in our core beliefs, we kind of know that it's true, and yet in the earth, time, and space realm, we go, oh, wait a minute, this must just be you're like a nightmare, as your father said. You were having nightmares.
Mm-hmm.
How do you deal with that?
I'm not here to prove myself to anybody who accepts the words from my guides, accepts them. I have to have validation. With anything I do, I get strong validation from the persons, the audience members. For instance, in channeling, I do group channeling sessions with many people. I hardly do one-on-one. And when I do the channeling, my guides have to give some strong validation about their life. And I'm going to share a few things with you. I remember one time I was in Eureka, Arkansas, and I have a guide called Indigo. He's extraterrestrial, and we can have guides that are extraterrestrial. And he was reading for this young woman, and he was looking down at her. Now, I'm blindfolded when I'm doing this, and he said, "The government confiscated your computers, didn't they?" And she said, "Yeah." He said, "You had pictures of UFOs on them, didn't you?" She said, "Yeah, I did." Then Indigo, very silly and very great humor, said, "Well, in one of those pictures, I was waving at you in that." And another story was, I have a Native American sparrowhawk that comes through. He's Earth protector, and he teaches lessons about the Earth and why we need to protect her and how the Earth came into consciousness and form. But he picked a young woman in the group and said, "Mother Earth is proud of you and wants to thank you for what you have done for her." Later on, she shared with the group that she is an environmental attorney and she has a case against big oil. So my guides, they pretty much know about what's going on with people without even knowing the people. So when you get strong validation where, how do they know that about me when they never met me? It's like, there's got to be something out there for those guides to know. Now, on the mediumship part is the loved ones coming through, where I'm not speaking to my guides. Like, guides we have different levels. This is the earth. Heaven is just a shadow, a breath away. Our guides are up here at a different vibration, a different level. So if you learn to connect with your guides at a higher consciousness and a higher level, you can just bring your vibrations down and you can speak to our loved ones here in heaven very easily. So most, I would say, better mediums have a good connection with their guides, and then they could touch and do that. But when I hear the loved ones, I give them permission to merge with me. And when they merge with me, I could just feel their personalities come through. So my demeanor would change. It's like, I have your father here. He's telling me this and that. And all of a sudden, I'll go to the side and he'll talk directly to the person. His mannerisms will come through. Words he might have said, like word for words, will come through me. And that's the difference when I hear from the medium, when I do the mediumship part. And I'll bring things that are only validating from there. There'll be just special memories that they may have on there. When I talk about the merging, I remember reading, doing a group gallery, and there was a young woman in the front row, and I looked at her and I said, "Your husband or fiance passed away." She looked at me and says, "Well, he was my boyfriend." And I said, was he going to ask you to marry him? And she said, yeah, that's what his friends told me that he was going to do. I said, he died in an accident, either car or motorcycle. She said, it was a motorcycle accident. And I said, you're supposed to go on a cruise. And he was going to propose marriage to you. Her eyes got really big. He says, he died the day before they were supposed to leave on the cruise.
Mhm.
And that was the plan. He was going to ask her to marry her. All of a sudden, he jumped into my body, made me get down on one knee, grab her palm of her hand, and I drew a heart in the center of her palm. She started bawling and crying, and she said, Joseph, that's all he used to do is draw hearts all over the back of my body when we lay in bed.
Mm.
So when I drew that little heart on the palm of her hand, she resonated with that was him. Then I proposed marriage to her. So from her in spirit.
That your book, Speaking to Heaven, contains lots of stories that validate that. I like what you said, that you're not here to convince people, because people have a choice of whether they want to believe or not believe. But the amount of work that you've done over the last decade plus in interacting with people, you saw validation for yourself over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
And you have example after example of people benefiting from this and healing from it and reaching some level of peace or closure. I don't know what the right word is. What do you call it?
It is closure, because most people, when their loved ones pass away, sometimes they are seeking closure. And as a medium, how we work is we give that closure. Sometimes you may have a loved one that you didn't have the best relationship with that person, and you never had closure when that person was alive, and all of a sudden that person passes away. Now, that loved one in spirit is normally when we meet up in heaven after we pass, we meet up and we have the closure then. But as mediums, we can give that closure ahead of time. We are at the telephone between the loved one and here in heaven, and we can express what the ones in heaven are saying, that they're apologizing for this, or they want to say they're sorry. And it helps heal the ones here so they can move on, knowing that person realizes maybe what they have done, and they can go forward in life realizing or giving forgiveness for that person. Or if they didn't have a chance to say goodbye, if somebody died from an accident, and the last time you saw that person is when they went to work or something, for them to come through just to say, I love you one more time, say how special you are, and how I'll always be with you and always be watching you. Your loved ones are always there. Every time we think of them, that means they're just there. Our thoughts bring them here. So when you think of your loved ones, you bring them near to us. So they're never far away, and they'll always be here with us.
I want to ask you about your cousin Joey, who got you started, or that was sort of a turning point. But before we do that, there's a couple of names that I don't recognize. Nancy Roberts is checking in this morning. Also, Kimberly Wilkinson and Amy Crystalline Josephine. So people are following, and I'm sure there are people who know of the work you're doing. So we're grateful that they're all joining us and saying hello this morning. So
they'll probably surprise them up so early doing this too.
you're usually the nighttime guy.
I'm the night person. Yes.
So I don't know exactly how old you are. Let's, roughly maybe 30 years old or so. And you had dabbled in it. You had been learning, and, you were in the closet as far as, this gift that you had. And your cousin Joey passes away. He's only in his early 30s. And there was some kind, I don't remember the circumstances, but he's gone, and his widow is devastated. And now you're driving home from the funeral, and boom, tell us what happened.
Yeah, it's my cousin Joey. It's an Italian thing. Name everybody after your grandfather. So there's a lot of Joes in my family. That's why I'm Joseph III. So to let you know.
Okay.
But yeah, it's 4 years difference between my cousin at the time. He was 34 years of age. I was I was just turning 30 at the time. And I was just learning I was channeling. I was becoming a channel. My mediumship abilities haven't kicked in yet. And I remember attending his funeral. And after I was leaving, I was driving home. I was very upset, and I was kind of, 34 years old. He's a father of 2 children. He had a 6-month-old, and he had a 2-year-old sons that he left behind. And I remember kind of screaming at God, why does something like this happen to a good man, young father? And then all of a sudden I heard his voice next to me on the passenger side. And he says, Joey, he calls me Joey too. You need to talk to my wife. I turned to the side and I thought I was losing it. I thought I was going crazy. Finally, he convinced me, because he came to me like 2 other times. I was watching a movie because I thought it was all in my head, and I thought it was part of the grieving process. But one late night I was watching television, and he came up to me again on the couch. You need to talk to Mary Lou. You need to tell her I'm okay. So I said, give me something that she only would know about, so I know this is not in my head and I'm going crazy. So he gave me some validating stuff that I had to tell her. So Mary Lou knew I was a channel at the time, because Joey and Mary Lou used to come in my channeling sessions where I was like a young channel. I was just starting to get into my channeling abilities. So I started to explain to her, I think your husband wants to say something. I'm not sure. I don't want to upset you. So I started saying word for word personal things between the 2 of them that only she would know. So long story short, my cousin Joey opened heaven gates for me. And ever since then, they keep on talking, different loved ones coming through.
Yeah, that was really the experience that Mary Lou had, and the healing that it provided for her. That's that moment where, let me see the words I had, where you realized that you could and you had to help others.
Yes.
Could and you had to. That's where the choice kind of didn't okay, I got to go do this. I can't not do this.
Well, I was getting bombarded afterwards. After I didn't know how to, I didn't set boundaries. I didn't know how to set boundaries. This was all new to me. And that time, this mediumship ability, there was no mediums on TV at the time either. I remember going to grocery stores, seeing spirit following people, looking at me, speak to them. A story with my ex-wife. We're at a Roadhouse. It's a restaurant here in South Florida back in the 90s. And the waitress came up, and I saw her mother in spirit behind her. And she's talking to me. I'm trying to not listen to her. And then when the server walked away, I went to my ex-wife. I said, her mother's behind her. Her mother wants me to say something to her. But like I said, I was a closet medium then. I didn't want to say anything. Well, she came back with our drinks, and my ex-wife said, my husband's a medium, and he says that your mother's with you. Her eyes just got really big. And I said, oh, God, the cat's out of the bag. Let me tell it. So I asked her, I said, did your mother pass away? She said, yeah. And I said, your mom's telling me that you're not doing what you're supposed to do. And she saved so much money. I said, were you supposed to go to medical school? And she looked at me. She said, I just dropped out of nursing school. Mm-hmm. And her mom just came out and said, you only had like a month to go and you would have graduated. We worked so hard to put you through school. I want you back in school. When we went back to the restaurant, maybe a month later or so, she came running up to me and she said, I registered back to nursing school. I am going to graduate school. So her mom came through spirit, through me, to tell her to get back in school again and do not let her death affect her. So that's when I decided maybe I needed to do this professionally or get out there more and get my name. So little by little, I started having small groups, and then the small groups became bigger groups and things. So
when did it happen that you went on the road with your show? And because earlier this year, things obviously changed for everybody. This year has been, an unusual year. In history, it'll go down as probably, a good year in many ways, because like a reset for all of the people. But prior to this year, 2019, 18, I don't know how far back, what were you doing? You were going out and you were holding these big events. Tell us what those events were like.
Yeah, my last big event was in March of 2019. That was the last time I did anything. I traveled, the country, mainly in South Florida, though, where I have a bunch of workshops that I do. It's not just speaking to heaven. I always start off with my speaking to heaven galleries where I bring the loved ones through. Then I have my group channeling sessions where I would channel my collective, I call them. And as I bring my collective through to speak to everyone, workshops I teach is Contacting Your Angels and Spirit Guide workshops, Unlock Your Psychic Mind. And then I have cards that I have made, that I have workshop on the cards that I do as well. A new mediumship workshop, medium mentorship that I'm teaching as well. And so that's what I did. I traveled into these cities. I would have a whole weekend. It's a Joseph LoBrutto weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I would be doing my divine healing. I would have large groups of people where I would be massive healings with people too. I'm also an ordained minister. So if they're affiliated with any type of church service, on Sunday, they would have me be the speaker, and I would do a sermon. And normally my Christ consciousness or my on there when I bring Yeshua or Jesus through, we'll teach a little lesson about brotherly love or whatever, soul connection, the journey of the soul. So that would be on a Sunday too. So this is what I would do when I travel. Once COVID is over, I teamed up with Kristen now, and we do the show every Wednesday, Night of Hope, Love, and Laughter. So she has different abilities than I. We kind of like a yin and a yang. We kind of fit together, and we're gonna just take it on the road and do our thing. So there's gonna be more workshops. There you go. So we're gonna do more workshops together and offer a variety of different things, and also online things we're gonna be putting together too. Online courses that were something new that we're trying to work on. But tonight, the show's tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific, and a night of love, hope, and laughter. And for those of you who want a reading from Kristen or I, tonight's the show to call, because it's mainly a reading night. And we'll talk a little bit about what the show is about in a minute.
Yeah, good. No, this is great. I really appreciate your, what you're doing. I've seen your show, and it's really, it's very different than this conversation that we're having now. So I appreciate your being willing to come and kind of talk about, the behind the scenes and how it got started, because there's not, you just like launch right into the, what you're doing to connect with people. And a lot of the people who call are in pain and, need your help. And you'll ask them questions. I've heard you, say, I don't know what the right thing would be, but, you're channeling spirit and their loved ones, and you're asking them questions, and they're validating and, kind of going down. I have one question. Do you ever have to, censor what you're going to say to people? Or do you just let it all kind of rip and fly out there? Because there's obviously people in a lot of pain and suffering. How do you balance that? Is there a balancing? And I guess the first thing would be, do you understand what I'm asking with the question?
Yeah, there is a censorship. You can't just blurt out. Like, for instance, if I'm bringing somebody who is murdered, violently murdered or something, I will not bring details of how they were killed or what I see. I will focus on more of the positive, that they're in the light, they're in a good place, they're in a place of forgiveness, and I will go in there instead of the brutality of what happened to that person. If sometimes I may let it slip out of their personality is that they say a cuss word here and there. I say, okay, I'm going to take the filters off. I'm going to let him speak so this way that person I'm reading, yeah, that's my husband. That's how he speaks. So I would take the filters off sometimes on that. Well, especially in a private session where it's not being aired, I'll take the filters off. Say, listen, I'm taking the filters off. I'm going to speak just like he would say it. So on a private session. But if we're on air like that, then I have to filter a little bit and on that. But sometimes we have to just be a word of caution is how you handle things and how you tell people how things happened. And so I understand the question on that.
Yeah, I was, it's a balance because you need to be genuine and authentic to be, to be truthful and to be, to really connect that spirit with the person. So there has to be that authenticity. And at the same time, it's like, there's lives in the balance in terms of fragility around the people who have lost a loved one. So anyway, that was a question I had, and I was just curious how you handled that. So thank you for letting us know. In my own Gump experience, from all those years ago, I had to learn how to, kind of thread the needle in terms of, having fun and, being entertaining and energetic, and also at the same time, being respectful to everybody who's in the room. So anyway, I appreciate what you're doing there. Maybe we should switch and talk about the show at this point, or does that sound like a good idea?
Yeah. The show concept came out when COVID came out. Everybody wanted me to do an online show like I'm doing, but I didn't have time because I was on the road all the time. And then if I'm not on the road, I had my office where I had private sessions that I would do. And so I didn't have time to do this. And then COVID hit, and now I got all the time in the world. I'm not going anywhere. But I was doing a lot of readings from people who lost loved ones from COVID, and I could see the pain that they're going through. A lot of people have lost their jobs. Even my work has cut 90%, has cut down too on there. So we came up with this concept back in March, late March or early April, to offer free services to anyone who calls in, who wants to get in touch with a loved one, to have direction in life, to see the light, or to have more direction in what's happening in their life. So this is the concept of the show. It's just to heal those who are in pain, who lost a loved one, or who are lost direction because of this COVID and need to know what's next in their lifetime. So that's where the concept of the show came up. Eventually, it may evolve differently in the future after COVID. Kristen has a great idea how she interviews people, metaphysical people. I like to go more into metaphysical topics where we talk about different subjects and teaching as well, and do some readings too. But right now I'm keeping it as a reading platform to get as many people read, just to help them.
Yeah. And tell us about, the interaction with you and Kristen together, because she has her own show on Monday nights. She joined with your show and is helping you out. She does a little more of a reading thing. You do more of a
connection with loved ones.
Connection. How does that balance and that yin and yang work between you two and the people who call in?
Kristen and I, we read differently. She's very intuitive, and she's very heart sent. I say the people get her, and she gets the people. You have to walk in their shoes, so to say. And when she reads people, her mediumship is coming along too. She says she uses me as a battery, when I'm connecting, she kind of tags on the back end and opens up for her. But her mediumship's going to kick in, and it's going to get stronger and stronger as she does it. But her side of it is just giving direction, life path, spiritual counseling, and helping out on there, where I am connecting to the loved ones on there. I am also a psychic as well as a medium. But since we're both there, Kristen mainly will take the life direction part, and I can take the mediumship part of things. And that's kind of works that way. On her show, she could be as kooky as she wants to. She was playing the ukulele on Monday, so she was trying to learn. And she's just herself on her show, and she brings people on and interviews, so sort of like what you do on there. So,
well, we've Kristen and I have gotten to know each other the last couple of months, and she's helped me by just encouraging me to go to be stronger in the things that I'm doing and the things that I want to do. And that little tiny bit of validation and encouragement has been helpful. So I really appreciate it.
She does. Yeah. She's doing that to me too. She's helping me get these online courses, which I never thought about doing, with workshops to bring them online. And she's pushing me to do that too. So, yeah.
One of the brilliant things that Debbie G, the founder of Spirituality Gone Wild and our leader with it, is that she brings these different people together, and they all have unique skills. And what's really neat is that there's like a complement to the different skill levels, and then there's also an encouragement to the skill levels. And so, it's making all of us stronger by being part of a team. And, the gifts that I have and the gifts that you have, they're very, very different, but it's not that they're incompatible with each other. They're we're all about enhancing the human experience.
That's it. we're different styles, different teachings, but it's all the same on there. And Debbie has something going on, and I like what she's doing. And I've known Debbie for a few years now, and Kristen came on board with her probably about like 2 weeks before I did. Kristen says, "Come on, Joe, you have to come on Spiritual Gone Wild with me." So I said, "Oh, okay, we'll do it."
All right. Well, we're glad you're here. Now, you and I had talked a week or two ago, and I had shared the story of I was living in Montana, and I was in a house, and it was actually a modular home. Not that that makes any difference, but it had been there on the property for probably close to 40 years. And I started experiencing this like wave. I'll call it an energy wave that would pass through me, and it always seemed to happen when I was laying in bed at night, and it was very strong. It was like a vibration thing, and it initially it freaked me out a little bit, and I didn't know what it was. But as time went on, and I experienced it, I got used to it, and I actually started to look forward to it, and nothing happened other than I would feel this wave pass through me. And it was like kind of like a chill. You get like a chill up your spine, or and so anyway, I didn't know exactly what it was. So I know that there had been a woman who lived in the home and had passed away in the home, but she was somebody who I did know, I had met, and seemed like at peace. So it didn't feel like she was like this spirit that wanted to hang out, and it just didn't feel that like that was what it was. So explain to people what you told me about what that might have been.
Well, it's subtle energy, and especially Montana is very Native American there, and there could have been a village where where you lived. And when spirits, sometimes they get stuck in a time loop where if they pass, especially mass passing, where they still in their generation or their time frame, their century, it's like a time loop where they live, and it goes round and round. And what you're feeling is the energy of the spirits, and most likely it's multiple spirits instead of one. And you'll probably feel it a certain time of day, and then it goes away, and then around the same time it comes back again. It's that continuous loop of that spirit being in there. So when people see ghosts sometimes, and they're like, let's say 18th century, and they're dressed in 18th century garb, the ghost doesn't see us. They're still stuck in that century, and they're living a loop and that's their reality, is that loop, and that's where they are. If you can break that barrier and make them aware of that they're stuck here and send them into the light, then they can go into the light and be in their heaven on there. But that's what you experienced.
Yeah. No, I appreciated that. And that rings true in terms of, like I didn't have an understanding. It was really the first time I've ever talked about it. So anyway, thank you for that. Hey, we're almost at the end of the hour. So let's go ahead and remind people one more time about the show. So tonight you will be on with Kristen, Night of Love, Hope, and Laughter. It's Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. on the West Coast. And, you provide a way for people to kind of call in, and then randomly you pick people, and you just, we'll do a reading with them, or a channeling with them, or not a channel, mediumship,
bringing in their loved ones.
Yep.
On there. And then Kristen will help them with direction, life direction, or spiritual counseling. We give, both of us, we do give spiritual counseling, and I call it that way, intuitive spiritual counseling.
Well, this was fun. Hey, thank you for joining us, Joseph. I really appreciate it. I'd love to have you back again. One of the ideas Kristen had was, possibly, doing some mediumship or some readings with people on this show. And so we're kicking around that idea. And I don't know that I wanted to necessarily open it up, but what if I have guests who I've gotten to know, and, they have a particular challenge, then maybe we could, have you here to help them. We're still figuring that out, but that seems like something that might be fun to do and benefit.
That would be wonderful too. Yeah, that sounds like a good idea. And in the chat, someone says, how do you call in? Maybe they're asking about tonight's show. When the show goes live, there will be the live link to click into the StreamYard, and you'll be able to get into the show when it goes live tonight.
Oh, yeah, you were you did a perfect, you channeled what Amy was asking beforehand. She wanted to know how to call in, so there you go.
Yes, I felt like somebody needed to know how.
All right, well, good. And we had Patrick Kelly and Angel Renati checking in and just saying good morning and saying that it was a nice experience. So thank you so much for for joining us. I sure do appreciate it, Joseph. And I would hope that you'll come back and be part of the show on some kind of an ongoing basis. That would be fun. We'll figure out what that looks like and how that would work. But and remind everybody one last time to go ahead and check out the Night of Love, Hope, and Laughter on Wednesday night. So that'll be tonight here on Spirituality Gone Wild, or ourjourneyoflife.com is probably the easiest way to find out how to connect with you.
There you go.
All right. Thank you, Joseph.
Okay.
Whoops. Now let's see. I got to put myself. There we go. Now I'm putting myself on. This is my show. This is not Joseph's show. So I have to be the one who ends it for us all. So anyway, it was great that Joseph joined us this morning. I sure do appreciate it. Now, let me just tell you what's going to happen tomorrow. We're going to have a show. I'm not 100% sure if I'll have a guest or not, but I will be live for at least a little while and do some type of a monologue. And then on Friday, Joan of Angels, who is also one of the new co-creators and hosts here on Spirituality Gone Wild. So that is it, everybody. We have one last comment. Let's see. So Cheryl says, thanks again for love and light. Thank you, Cheryl, for joining us this morning. We appreciate that you checked in with us. All righty, everybody. Have a great rest of your Wednesday, and we will see you tomorrow bright and early. Have a nice rest of your Wednesday. We'll see you tomorrow.